Welcome back. We are still talking about Mental Health Awareness Month, and we've invited in studio two great guests. We've got our external psychologist, Mr. Sia Zigalala, who is a psychologist in private practice. We also have Constable Nice Marcelo, who is an operational member of the South African Police Service with the Rapid Rail Police Unit Cross Border. He's going to share with us some insights about some of the experiences that he's been exposed to. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much, Brig.
Maybe let's start with you, Constable. Dressed in the gear that you are dressed in, you are an operational member. What are some of the repeated exposure to crime scenes that you've experienced since you started with the organization?
In most cases, within the unit that I am working in, we are exposed to several different kinds of crimes, including whereby you find cable thefts, the damage of the infrastructure within the rapid railway systems, and also those ones who are stealing the transformers and all those the transformers cables, as well as just armed robbers within the railway systems.
And having been exposed to, let's say, some of the shootout with criminals, how do you process that when you get home in terms of what you've experienced during the day and some of the emotional traumas that comes with it when you get home in the evening?
It is not an easy, and it is never easy to actually just immediately cope with everything that we experience when we are on the field of work, because some of the things can be traumatizing. And if they find you weak, you can find yourself not knowing what to do, but committing things that you are not supposed to be committing. So we just try by all means. With me, I try by all means to talk a lot. I talk a lot with the people that I feel closer to, and just to offload onto them everything that I'm experiencing and everything that I'm going through at work, so that the load can become more easier to carry than just keeping quiet and let it sink in me. So yeah.
And Sia, I can see you nodding as he's talking about talking a lot and confiding in people that are close to him. How important is talking when you've had a traumatic experience or exposure to a traumatic experience in terms of just vocalizing that experience?
It's very important to express emotions as opposed to repressing them. What really creates a battle of mental health and a battle of stresses and trauma with people is the inability to express emotions in an effective manner. When you bottle things inside, I always make this example that when you bottle things inside, it's like taking an empty plastic container, like a water bottle or something, and you fill it up and you stuff it up with sand or any other substance. Ultimately, what you will see is that the bottle starts to swell up and you keep on pressing down and pressing down. Ultimately, it explodes. Now, the problem with explosion is that you don't have control on where things spill off to. They will spill off into areas of your life that you never wanted them to be touched. They will spill off on your marriage. They will spill off on your work. They will spill off on social relationships and many other important areas really of your life. But when you express emotions, when you talk about something, as my brother here is explaining, it's very important, because it's almost like you decide to intentionally and purposefully say, this bottle is now full, I'm going to empty it. It is a conscious decision that you have to take and make, that, okay, I'm going to go into a controlled environment and I'm going to empty that. So speaking about your experiences and your emotions, whether to your partner, whether to a professional, or whether to a friend or so on, it is a very important act of expressing emotions, which serves a great function in emptying and debriefing yourself in the process.
Now, when you talk about some of these experiences, for example, what is alluded to, and from a psychological point of view, when these members have been exposed to a lot of crime scenes, a lot of gruesome crime scenes, chasing criminals, shooting incidents, how would that, psychologically speaking, affect any normal person that you want to talk about?
It presents what we call psychological trauma, or post-traumatic trauma. As perhaps you have been familiar with the term post-traumatic stress disorder, which is now a disorder of a particular exposure and experience to a traumatic event. Now, what he is describing is that basically they work in places that at a consistent rate always put their lives at risk. Because when we talk about trauma, you're talking about a near-death experience. So if I witness someone dying, there is a near-death experience, it can have a traumatic impact on me. If I or myself almost die, whether be it in a car accident or be it in a shooting, or exchange of fire and force, between police and criminals, that places the life of a police officer at risk, meaning it's a near-death experience. In fact, the entire work scope of police is a near-death experience because of the level of violence that they're exposed to, which leads them to, registering all sorts of traumatic experiences. So there's a lot of it. It's actually trauma, what one would be going through. And it's very important then to process that and understand it for what it is, because you cannot just then switch from that environment into a different environment and loving and caring, being a husband at home, immediately just coming from a place where you almost died. You are still in shock. As you walk out of the crime scene, as you go back to the police station, you are in shock. Your mind is telling you that anything could have happened, because the mind works in quite a way that, it triggers these automatic negative thoughts that always come. Some of them are to help us to cope, like your adrenaline, to pump up the adrenaline, the flight, freeze or fight responses, they come in there. So when you are still in that moment, in that shocked moment, you need to then have some form of a breakage of that scene, so that you may be able to then exist in a different context where you are expected to play a different role, either being a friend or being a father or being a colleague to even your co-workers.
Now, as somebody who's dealing with a lot of issues around depression, suicide, anxiety, those kind of issues, what do you normally tell the clients that come to see you? I know you deal with a lot of law enforcement clients. What do you normally tell them in terms of how to cope with the stressful nature of the job?
It is very important to be genuine to what you are feeling inside, to be genuine to the emotions that you are feeling. Often we repress these emotions because they are associated with weakness. They are perceived as maybe a sign of weakness. So we shove them away. But shoving it away doesn't help. It's almost like you are postponing the inevitable, because they will still come and catch up with you until you decide to consciously then confront them and face them. So being genuine to your emotions is very important. Do not try to be strong when you are feeling weak. Do not try to convince yourself that you've got it, even when you can see the early signs that you are, this thing has really affected you. Own up, embrace what you are feeling so that you can be able to deal with. So it's just being genuine to those emotions. So genuineness to emotions, it says, if you feel like crying, you need to cry. The whole ideas, how we were raised and so on, and what has been popularly known in communities that cowboys don't cry, men don't cry. It's the things that really are affecting us, and they are standing in the way of effective expression of emotion. So you need to be genuine with your emotions. If you feel like crying, you need to cry. If you feel like screaming, you need to scream. Some of these experiences, they stir up a lot of anger within a person. So sometimes you would need to allow yourself the space to express that anger in a much more effective way. If you feel like screaming and punching something, it's okay. It's okay. You need to understand that it is okay to feel angry because of the things that you got exposed to in the field. You need to understand it is okay to feel sad and to feel pity, to feel weighed down by whatever experiences that you have faced there. Now, own up to that experience, process it, understand what it means to you, and then you may be able to move forward.
Now, Constable Masilo, you've just come from an operation. I'm sure you're going back again now. Having listened to what the psychologist is saying, and I know you've said you've visited our psychologist internally from an employee health and wellness. What encouraged you to even take that route of going to employee health and wellness within SAPS?
I am somebody who likes to talk and offload. I don't like to bottle up things in most cases. So when I encounter incidents that I feel they are very much heavy for me, I usually prefer to go and offload with the psychologist. I sometimes use, our EHW, Employee Health and Wellness. If not them, I'll go to our the private psychologist. So the incident that once led me to trying to go and see our EHW was that when I was with one of my colleagues the other day, we were doing some night patrols on Ben Schoeman Highway. So in that incident, it was the time that during the July unrest and so forth, before those times of the July unrest. So what happened is that there was a guy who was driving from Durban who bumped us at the back, bumped the van that we were driving at the back. When we got out of our car and tried to go and check on if the member, if that person is okay or not, he came out. I asked him what happened. He said no, he was talking to his wife who was pregnant and he was deployed in Durban for 3 months. So they had some altercations from Heidelberg up until here in Ben Schoeman next to Samrand. So the guy immediately, just the moment when I went back to my car, to the car that we were utilizing, I and my colleague, I asked him for the license. Then he went to his car. Then when he went to his car, immediately he just came out with the gun and shot himself. So in front of me, I was looking at that incident. So to me, that incident was very traumatic as well, because it is not something that I anticipated at that moment. It is something that just came out of the blue, because I wanted to listen more into what happened and everything like that. So, but yeah, such incident traumatized me a bit, and I was also going through some family problems at the time. So it felt like it is becoming more of a burden to me. Then I decided, no, let me go and talk to one of our psychologists at the very much helpful. Trust me, it was very much helpful. I felt so much at ease after talking to the who I was talking to. She helped me a lot.
Do you normally encourage other members? Let's assume the guy that you were with or your colleague who were with you in the car. Do you normally encourage other members to do the same in terms of just approaching EHW to talk about or debrief from the incident?
I do that a lot. I do that. I speak to most of my colleagues, some of them that I know their problems. Yes, I do encourage them to go and speak to a certain professional who can be able to assist them and be useful in that regard. Because you bottling up things will end up leading you into the route that you are not supposed to be taking, because you get confused and distracted from a lot of things. So your senses are no longer working, all of them, because everything is overworking in your body. So you are not thinking straight. So it is best that you find a professional that can be able to assist you and help you to regroup and come back to your normal senses, and so that you can take rightful decisions. Mm-hmm.
Now, Sia, just listening to that story, it's 1 in a million. There's 180,000 of us in the SAPS. And that incident has nothing to do with what was happening then. There must have been other underlying issues, but our members obviously are exposed to even those issues that have got really nothing to do with commission of a crime or the accident that they were trying to, investigate. How do you rationalize with what he's been through and how to process that if the next person was to go through the same?
It's important that we understand what mental health is. When you're talking about mental health, you're not just talking about the absence of a disorder. Just because the person has never been diagnosed with depression, with anxiety or whatever form or PTSD, it doesn't mean necessarily everybody is healthy or all is well with that person. It's not just the absence of a disorder. It's a continuum that involves a complete well-being of a person, body, mind, and soul. That is why we use what we call a biopsychosocial support, biopsychosocial approach. In the biopsychosocial approach, we are basically understanding that the stressors and what influences the person's behavior, emotions, and thoughts, it's things that come from their whole rounded life and functioning. Whatever that stresses them from home, it's got an impact into their work. Whatever that stresses them at work, vice versa at home, it would affect various areas of functioning. This guy bumped the car because he was engaged in a stressful argument that emanates from his a marriage or relationship. And that affected even how he was functioning on the road. Remember, when you are on the road, it's an occupation, basically, driving, you understand? Because you actually get trained to do. You get trained and you are exposed to all the rules of the road and so on. So at that moment where there is an external stimulus that is affecting you, or an external stressor emanating from one part of your life, it affected his driving already. He could no longer concentrate and observe the rules of the road at the time. So immediately it makes that person a danger to himself and a danger to others around. You understand? So, and then once that has happened, he is so overwhelmed. This on its own, the fact that now he has bumped another car, adds to the stressor. It still has nothing to do with his occupation or work, but it adds to say everything now. So how they process it, how possibly he was processing it, is that all is bad. Everything is just going wrong and bad. He was not seeing any light in the end of the tunnel. At that moment, he was suffering from severe hopelessness. So it comes from multiple other things, areas of functioning, that when we process it, it's almost like everything gets clapped together and everything just becomes so heavy, at that moment, and you just don't see any way out of it. And hence the only way is to just, maybe resort to suicide at the time. It's because of the lack of hope and the hopelessness that has been driven by that. So in terms of processing it, really, when you consult or you seek professional help, as is saying, or you allow yourself to debrief and talk about things, it allows for an external opinion, an external view of what you're going through. I call it a meta perspective. In fact, in psychology, we call it a meta perspective. So meaning you are rising above the current situation where you exist, because when you are in the problem, you are unable to see other things, including your role in the problem, So, but the moment that you get someone who's objective, who's not emotionally invested into the issues that you're going through, they are able to then help you to actually see even other areas. Where you were seeing darkness, they're able to say, but there's a light if you look there at the end of the tunnel. Have you considered 1 and 2 and 3? They give you a fresh perspective into the things that you are going through, which you were unable to go to synthesize yourself because you were in the problem at that moment.
Yeah. And how can people like Constable Masilo here and many others protect their mental health in terms of the experiences that they're still going to face? Just preventative measures in terms of how do you identify triggers, when do you know the time to seek help, and what interventions are out there available?
The good thing is there's always signs. There's always early signs and symptoms that you can actually see. And when you start to see them, then you realize, okay, perhaps now it is time. So self-awareness is very important. You would see that when you are overly stressed or the stressor is now becoming clinical, let me start here. There is a difference between what is clinical in terms of mental health issues, what is clinical and what is normal. So I get stressed. You get stressed. Everyone gets stressed on a daily basis. If I didn't get the money I was expecting on that particular month, that can stress me. It can make my mood go low, and I might not be interested in certain things. But soon I bounce back and I go back to normal. So that happens. I lost someone, I feel sad, and then I come back to normal. So where we say it is now pathology or is now no longer normal is when you are unable to bounce back into the norm, into the normal level of functioning, where you get actually trapped into either being into depression or into a stressful way of behavior, or a symptomatic way of behavior. So what you would then see is that perhaps now you are starting to lose a lot of interest in things that previously would have been interesting to you. When your friends or your colleagues say, let's go out, you just don't have the energy nor the interest to do that. Then you'll start to see, previously, you know yourself, this is not how I was. Even with your colleagues, because as colleagues as well, we can help each other. We can be able to identify the problems. You know how a brigadier is how he is and on a daily basis. And you can be able to tell that, no, today he's not himself. Why? There's a change in behavior that you are seeing. So you must be able to pay attention to those early signs and symptoms. When you find yourselves wanting to stay more in bed than getting out, where you find yourselves even maybe your drinking levels have increased. You are now drinking more, taking a lot of alcohol than you previously would. You are now smoking a lot for those who smoke. You are now smoking a lot, than you usually would. You are now spending more time alone and have no interest to associate with other people. You are irritable at times. A small thing, you overreact into situations. You are more worried, you are more anxious, at times than you would see. Then these are the early signs. They are pointing you to say something is not really going right, and perhaps you need to then pay more attention in reflecting and seeing exactly where is this coming from, and then seek the necessary help.
Now, from a bird's eye view, from your side as an external eye, what do you think are some of the things we can do that are low-hanging that we should be doing all year round, not necessarily waiting for Mental Health Awareness Month that comes once a year? Mm-hmm. What else can we do just to talk about this issue and impart this public awareness to our members to say there is help and you don't have to go through it alone?
Of course. Prevention is better than cure. At all times, prevention is better than cure. I believe that what you see, a visual exposure, really stimulates learning about something. It's the same thing that the industry, many industries do when they are advertising a particular product. You will see it everywhere you are driving. You will see it on billboards, you will see it on TV, you open radio, you are hearing about something. If that was to happen when it comes to mental health issues, more people will become far much more aware of what mental health is and what they can do when they are, affected by it. It will also help to destigmatize, mental health, generally, so that it is known that you are not alone when you are having a problem. When you are having a stress, when you are feeling sad or you are feeling suicidal, you are actually not alone. There's many other people who go through that, and there's a lot of help and options for help that are available there. So things like if our police stations would have posters that speak about what is suicide, what is depression, what is mental health, every now and then, which hotlines to call, numbers, that you would call, as it is displayed in this studio. Imagine if you were to have that in every single police station, where, even in the police vehicles inside, there's a particular little poster, an I5 sticker that is stuck somewhere speaking about issues. You become more visually exposed to it, to the point that at the time of need, it quickly comes back to your mind, because a learning process happened without you even realizing that you were actually learning about it because of that repeated exposure to it.
And just in wrapping the discussion, Constable, I just want to check from your side, how do you manage the work-life balance? Because it's important that you have the life at work, but you also have the life at home. You alluded to the fact that at some point you're also having some personal problems. That's why, or one of the reasons you went to see. But how do we balance to make sure that what has caused you emotional trauma at work doesn't translate to emotional trauma at home?
It's a bit heavy, but it can be made simple. By so saying, I'm trying to say it can be made simple through talking, as I've mentioned before. It is important that whenever you feel that there is a matter or there is an issue that you have experienced at work, and it is becoming so much heavy for you to deal with, or you feel that it's going to be a problem when you get home, just try by all means that before you reach your household, or before you reach home, you have spoken to somebody else that you can rely on, somebody that you can trust, because it is not easy that you talk to everybody. There are people that when you talk to, they tend to turn your matter into a joke, or they tend to gossip around with your matters, and then they'll be making you a laughing stock. So it is very much important that you identify the relevant people, the good people that you can see and feel that you will trust, and then you can talk to and offload onto them or tell them. Even through calls, you can call somebody that you feel you can trust. You can call somebody and talk to somebody. You know what, I've experienced 1, 2, 3 today, and I'm not good at all. I feel like it's becoming a burden on me. So it is so heavy on my shoulders. I need just to offload. There are people out there who would love to listen, and that you may know as a person. With me, I know who to call when I have problems. I know who I can talk to. The people that I trust, I know that this one that I can talk to, and then I can get well. And in the next morning or so, I will try to call our EHW or our offices and then make an appointment to go and talk to a professional. And on the other side, the other problem that I think we need to also identify is that I think the accessibility of the EHW is not proper within our organization. It's something that I think our organization need to look at, because in my thinking, I believe that if we can have in each and every police station or in each and every unit, we have an office whereby there is a full-time social worker, a psychologist, as well as the one for spiritual, a chaplain. Yeah, if we can have those three people permanently so in each and every police station, police units, all those, we need to have such members there so that we can easily access them. Whenever I feel whenever I feel that I'm having a problem right there at my workplace, I know which door to go to at that moment. Because now when you're thinking that I need still to go drive and get into QD Arcade and go into which floor and stuff like that, it becomes a bit inconveniencing on the other side. So we just need to have them closer to us, whereby we can talk to them on a daily basis. So it will help a lot for most of us.
No, thank you very much, Constable Masilo. Sia, thank you very much for those insights.
Thank you.
That was psychologist Sia Zigalala, as well as Constable Masilo, sharing his experiences of what he's been through on the ground, and it helps us to understand how important mental health is. After the break, we talk to Polmed and see what they have to offer in terms of our members going to seek help. Don't go away.